Right, Johan? I hope we have
Yes.
enough participant count. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you all for joining. And I would like to welcome everyone to SAIMA session 6, along with my co-organizers, Johan, Gaurav, and Lilith. I will be hosting today's session. A little about myself. I am currently working as a Salesforce architect in USD Global India. I have around 12 years of Salesforce experience, and I am a Salesforce certified system and application architect. And like everyone else in the meeting, my dream is also to become a Salesforce CTA in the near future. So I hope Jakub and Praneel will be sharing some details to help us. I think both of them have cleared CTA in this year. So hearty congratulations to both of them for clearing a tough certification like CTA, and to you also, Johan.
Das Coolste ist, man kann hier auch reingehen.
I think, yeah, Johan, I guess we might need to mute someone. Yeah, I think so. Wait. Okay, it's okay now. Okay, so this is our second session with Jakub, and he has also shared an interesting thing about him, like he's part of Mensa International. So probably we can hear more about that organization and what he's doing as part of that organization from Jakub itself. Praneel is Salesforce CTO in PwC France, and he has experience working in multiple industries, helping different teams to do the digital transformation and capability building and also performance improvement. A little about our team, SAIMA. So we want to support each other in preparing for the technical architect certification by creating and sharing content and facilitating small study groups. If you have got more ideas on what we can do better, or if you have how to improve the execution of our team, please share with us. We would love to hear that. And some housekeeping rules for the session. I'm sure I don't need to explain, but please mute yourself during the session. And if you have got any questions, please share that on chat. And the important note is that we are not perfect, neither do we know everything. So if you spot a mistake, please do let us know. If you're interested in presenting or hosting, please let us know. Also, we welcome anonymous speakers. That is, if you would like to present without revealing your identity, even if that is a recorded session without Q&A, we welcome that. Please let us know. Without further delay, let us move to our first session, which is why and how write your own mock scenario. So Jakub will be taking us through how he has prepared his own mock scenario to prepare for CTA certification. Over to you, Jakub.
Okay, thank you a lot. Could you give me the permission to share my screen? Maybe you have to stop sharing.
Yeah, I just stopped sharing.
Okay. Awesome. How that it works. So thank you a lot. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about why and how write your own mock scenario during your preparation for the CTA review board. Usually, as the architects, we should start with why, because it's going to take some time to go through the whole process of preparing the scenario, but it's going to be very beneficial for you. I wrote one scenario during my preparation. It was quite tough time. I spent like approximately 40 hours on it. I was, of course, logging my time during days when I was working on this. So this 40 hours is, I think, quite solid number. And I see that it was very beneficial for me because, first of all, CTA review board, in my personal opinion, is still just the exam. And of course, it's not easy exam. You have to study a lot, learn a lot. But at the end, if you really understand the rules of this exam, you can much better focus on how to solve it and how to pass it. And nowadays, when I have opportunity to see how other people are solving mock exams, sometimes I see, let's say, that somebody is introducing as part of the solution AWS or some Google API. And it may work, it can be a good solution, but when you go back to the exam guide, there is nothing about AWS, there is nothing about Google API. Salesforce CTA is mostly about Salesforce, and it's first step to understand what is the scope of the exam and what are the rules related to the exam. Because when you understand it in many details, it's much easier for you to prepare for it. So the first benefit of writing your own scenario is the fact that you have to really understand the structure and generally the flow of the scenario. You have to understand a little bit how people who are writing scenarios are thinking and how this whole thought process looks like. So, it's like writing a book or writing a manual to your tabletop game. It's not enough that you know the correct answer, but you have to use the correct words and correct sentences to point the candidate how to solve your scenario. And it helps you to see that sometimes people are using, let's say, magical keywords because they are giving you some clues how they expect that you should solve the scenario. It's super valuable to be familiar with this kind of the keywords and tricks, because then when you are solving your real exam, you can use this knowledge. Working on your own scenario, for me, was a great opportunity to cover my gaps. So nowadays, Salesforce ecosystem is so big. We have so many clouds, so many different features that I'm assuming that most of the candidates don't have real experience with everything, so what is included in the exam. So if, for example, you've never worked with Marketing Cloud or Community Cloud, you can put them in your scenario, and then it's help you to understand what is your real level of knowledge and how many gaps do you still have. And last but not least, it's a lot of fun. And I'm talking both about working on this scenario and writing it, but then when you have finally it after a few months ready to share with the community and you see how different people are solving it, it's a really beneficial experience. And definitely, like, comparing to the fact that you are mostly doing it for your learning purpose, it's a super nice reward at the end of this whole process. And before you start working on your own scenario, you should first of all start to be familiar with the existing scenarios and with the exam guide. I strongly recommend to take either Universal Safety Technologies or Greenup System, because both of them are very familiar in terms of the size and the content to the real review board exam. So generally, the structure of the exam, the number of pages and number of requirements, it's exactly what you should try replicate during your work. And the second thing is the exam guide. You can find it on Trailhead. And I do not recommend to study this exam guide just to study it, but usually during a preparation, you should go back so many times to this exam guide that at the end, more or less, you're starting to memorize it, because it's so big part of your preparation, because at the end, you are trying to solve the exam and get some points. And these points are exactly what Salesforce is describing on the Trailhead. So let's go together through this exam guide on the high level. There are 6 main sections which we have to cover: the system architecture, security, data, solution architecture, integrations, and development lifecycle and deployment planning. And you've seen that in each slide, I had bullets. They are literally copied from the Trailhead. And each bullet, under the hood, from my understanding, should be somehow related to the scenario. So when you are solving the real exam, you should feel comfortable that, for example, in this development lifecycle and deployment planning, we have 6 bullets, and one is about identifying the project risk and mitigation strategies, which mean that even if you are going through the scenario and you didn't catch any risk, probably you missed something. So during the second attempt to reading and solving, because usually when you are working on the exam, you have time to read the whole scenario 2 or 3 times, you should go back to your memory and say to yourself, okay, I didn't catch any risk yet, but for sure there is something, I missed something. And when you are reading the scenario second time, you should be more aware that probably there are going to be 1 or 2 sentences which you can just put on one slide to say that, okay, risks in this project are, let's say, I don't know, problems with governments, problems with teams working with different time zones, problems with performance of existing systems, whatever, and how to mitigate them. It's quite critical that you cannot only say that it is a risk, but for example, if I found that a risk is fact that the existing system has problems with performance, as mitigation strategy, I'm considering maybe to replace it via Heroku or just do something else. But you know, in this case, after solving the exam, I have a feeling that for this specific bullet, there is a quite big chance that I will get a point because I successfully found the risk and I suggested mitigation strategy. And for each of these sections, each bullet, in my understanding, is something what you should try to cover during your real exam. But when you're writing on your own mock scenario, of course, you are going to take a look from the other side. And in this case, we are trying to write the requirements for every of these bullets. And for me, it was the best option how to more or less memorize all of them. And in the real exam, additionally, there's a section about communication. It's not going to be part of writing your own scenario because this communication part is purely related to the presentation. So you do not have to think about communication when you are writing your own mock. Of course, to start, you can use some kind of the scenario template. And I've put here a link to the scenario template, which has been created initially via Georgi Saviev from Benelux CTA study group. And his template has been quite heavily improved and contributed via other members from this Benelux community. Let me maybe share you a little bit how it looks like. It's pretty solid short document with information what should be covered generally during the mock, some advices and guidances, and the sections which you should fill during your preparation. And as you know, it's still working and living document. So after you are starting to work on it, you are more than welcome to either contact with guys from Benelux via their email or add even comments in read-only mode to the equip, because every kind of contribution to the community is super useful for other folks. And now let me go quickly to my own case study. I wrote scenario about universal parcel lockers. Of course, it's fictional company. And how to generally start the whole process. Maybe at the beginning, I will show you what is the final effect. You can find my scenario on the community. I published it today. My colleague from Flow Republic and my mentor, Sebastian Wagner, helped me a lot with this, and generally he made the review and some improvements to this initial draft. And the whole scenario is exactly in the size what you can expect on the real review board. So we have like 5-6 pages with some project overview, with some actors, with description of the current systems, the business process requirements, and of course, business process requirements are quite a big part, and some migration, accessibility, visibility requirements, reporting, and governance at the end. And this is what you can find in the community. Of course, as part of working on it, we have few more things to go. But at the beginning, you have to decide what you are going to write about, right? Behind every scenario, there is some kind of the story, some kind of the company, and some kind of the flow, like from lead to contact, then to create opportunity to build some custom objects, which we are going to cover via bullets. So when I was starting to work on the scenario, I firstly gathered some initial ideas based on some real company which exists in Poland, and I just put for myself some kind of the notes. Additionally, I know that for me, the review board is going to be challenging because I have very good understanding of Salesforce as a platform, but I have lack of expertise with sales and service cloud because my area of expertise is purely the app exchange. So when you are defining what you want to do with your mock, you should think what kind of the knowledge gaps do you want to cover, because you will have opportunity to ask yourself some questions and go back to the documentation or thread or other sources to find answers and double check how something really works. And if, let's say, you don't have experience with CPQ or field service or even multi-org strategies because you always had projects with a single Salesforce org, you can still take a real example from your life or career, but additionally add some flavors and some extra requirements related to this kind of extra add-ons, which can be a core of your scenario. When you have this initial vision, what do you want to cover? The next step is to build the draft of the scorecard. I've copied from the thread exactly what I showed you a moment ago. So these sections and sub-bullets. And for each bullet, I put for myself a note how I want to match my mock scenario with this specific bullet. And for example, that on system landscape diagram, I'm going to put this, and that system. Or for example, for mobile app, I'm going to suggest mobile native app. And because of some features which are not available in Salesforce hybrid app, or something like that. So generally, still, it's not yet the document, but I'm putting for myself some kind of notes how I'm going to cover every point which is part of the Salesforce scorecard. When we have these two parts, which I'm considering as the draft or proof of concept, we can start working on the solution itself. So always I would recommend to start with diagrams, because, you know, if working on the scenario is going to take you 40 hours, you are going back and forth to many of diagrams, which then candidate at the end is going to prepare. And system landscape and data model generally is going to be a living animal for you. So when you are then going to add more and more requirements and bullets, you're going to again and again to modify your landscape and data model. But definitely your solution key must work at the end. It must be doable in Salesforce. So you have to always keep in mind that somebody at the end is going to read your scenario and try to solve it. So you have to be able to solve it on your own. And if you don't know how to solve your own scenario, because, for example, you are trying to solve your own knowledge gaps and you don't remember how Sales Cloud model looks like, go to the documentation and double check what is the, let's say, relationship between quote and opportunity and order. Because again, for you, it's the opportunity to learn and memorize stuff which you maybe don't have so much real experience, but at some point you have to understand them to be able to go for the review board. And as you can see, I have here additionally some notes for myself on my data model. So even if I was doing the solution, there are some decisions that say related to a large data volume strategy. Always you can go with big objects. Always you can go with data warehouse and external objects. Always you can do something else. So even if I picked one of them as the optimal solution, I was putting for myself notes why I decided for this solution instead of something else. And after I have my diagrams more or less ready, I'm starting to work on the scenario content. As you can see, after every bullet or sub-bullet, I have some blue font saying what is my solution key. It can be simple, one sentence saying that, for example, for this point case assignment rule is more than enough. But if we do it like some heavy integration or some merge-check requirement, this blue solution key part can be even much longer than the point itself. And that is super useful because when you are starting to write the scenario in the form similar to the final exam and starting to work on the solution key, immediately you are starting to see how you have to write the sentences to point the candidate for the final solution. So for example, if somebody is describing you that system has a web UI interface, it's a keyword which can point you that for integration you can use Canvas. If somebody is describing that another system in the landscape have problems with the performance, maybe the good solution is to go with the hierarchy and replace the system. So generally, if you are going through this and trying to make these sentences on your own, immediately you can understand what is the thought process of person who wrote the scenario which you are going to try solve after 3 months during your real review board. And to be honest, my approach with having just one option of the solution works for me, but I heard that for the real exam, it's not so simple because, as you know, always you can find 2 or 3 good solutions for every requirement. So it may even happen that the solution key can be more complex and have these different options available. Sometimes somebody is going to solve a scenario with CPQ, and on the other hand, another person can just make custom object for some custom payment mechanism, and so on and so on. So if you have more time and you want to practice more, you can try to solve your own scenario in few different ways, prepare a few different solution keys. And then what is going to be your final output? You should have the final PDF with your scenario, which you can share with other people who are preparing for your review board. My scenario can be found in a HITEC as a community. I published it today just before this session, so you are more than welcome to take a look and try to solve it on your own. And I do not recommend to publish the solution key. So generally, this part and the diagrams, it's something which I'm not going to share with anybody. And the reason why is because the solution key can be outdated extremely soon. Literally after the next Salesforce release, the optimal solution can be totally different. And the beauty of Salesforce is the fact that the scenario itself can be used by different candidates in the next few years because it's more or less independent from the Salesforce release, but the solution key can be outdated very soon, which is a first problem. And the second problem, maybe not a problem, but a second topic to consider is the fact that there is no only one way how to solve the scenario correctly. And even if it's your scenario and you have something in your mind, like I had discussions about my mock that some people see here a new option to use field service writing. Another people want to use CPQ. Another want to prefer build it on custom objects. And all of this solution maybe can be a good solution. So like if you will publish your own point of view and your own solution key, immediately you are putting some frames and generally you're a little bit blocking creativity of other candidates. So instead of this, it's much more beneficial to see other people's solution and then make them Q&A session to challenge if their solution is maybe even better compared to what I had in my mind. And as I mentioned, big thanks to the Sebastian from Flow Republic who helped me a lot with preparing the final version. As you hear, I'm not English native speaker, so for me, even the check of my written language was super useful. And generally, you know, it's like writing a manual for the tabletop game. And during the first attempt to read somebody's scenarios, you are not testing really the candidate's knowledge. The candidate is testing how good is your scenario. So before you are going to publish something in the community, it's good to have at least one reviewer who will make you not during this time frame like 3 hours, but take as much time as he can to just help you to polish the final output. And after this first kind of the review and round of improvements, the final document can be published with people who will challenge themselves and try to solve it as their real exam. And thank you for your attention. It's maybe not related to the presentation in any way, but I put just city Wrocław where I live, and I just strongly recommend you to think that maybe it's a good place to go one day because yeah, you are more than welcome. And that's all what I have. So thank you a lot. And going back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jakub. That was very interesting topic. And
Let me know once you guys can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Mira, can you confirm the same, please?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Praneel. Yeah, we are good.
Perfect. Yeah, hello everyone. So Praneel PIDIKITI. So I'm here to talk about my experience with my CTA preparation journey. Okay, it's not going to be as detailed as Jakub because that's more like an advanced session. This is for how to quick start your presentation, and this is just an experience, my own experience, and how I prepared to crack my CTA. So before jumping, so I just want to really appreciate and thank both Johan Gaurav and also Mira, and and also thanks Jakub so for this opportunity because and also SAIMA especially. So thanks guys. I think you guys are doing an incredible and a job, especially for people who really want to know and get details about all the inner workings of how an architect roles and responsibilities. Yeah, before starting, sir, because I passed my exam on September 22nd, so I got the result after 3 weeks. So from that day till now, a lot of people ask me, "Hey, CTA exam is quite difficult, So do you think we can crack this exam? Is it like is it demanding? Is it going to take a lot of our personal time?" So first thing, I would like to start with this quote to just start everything in a very positive note. So it's all about you. If you really want to get this thing done, this exam, all it needs is your complete dedication. And if you're ready to put in, so anyone can become a CTA. So that's what I would like to tell. Yeah, so today's agenda is pretty straight. So it's about quickly about who am I, and then what exactly is CTA, and why do I want to be a CTA? And this same question applies to everyone. You have to ask yourself why exactly you want to be a CTA, and then how do I prepare for CTA? So again, this is my approach, and you have to take it the best pieces of it and try to build your own preparation plan. And we'll go in detail about the step-by-step approach, and also some of my work in terms of artifacts or my cheat sheets. I just have as something to showcase, and at last we'll see what are the key takeaways from this presentation. At last we'll see, I'll take your questions and we can discuss further in detail. Yeah, so I think Mira already gave this introduction. Praneel PIDIKITI, I'm from Paris and I work for PwC. So just let's move on. So what is this CTA, and why is it so important? As I think if you guys are in this presentation, you already know what this exam is. This is one of elite Salesforce credential. It is that kind of the top of this pyramid, and there aren't a lot of CTAs today in the market. So there are around 30 to 40 people coming out every year. That's not a lot. I think in terms of demand, and I think the Salesforce ecosystem need more and more quality CTAs out. So there's a huge demand for this thing. So in this exam comprised of three parts, as Jakub mentioned, and also a lot of you people know. First thing is the preparation, where you have around 180 minutes, where you have to quickly read through the scenario, build your artifacts, and finalize your solution mapping. So that's the expected. And what I did in order to get to that point is improve my reading speed and my comprehension level, and also gain some cross-industry knowledge, because being a part of PwC, I got an opportunity to work in multiple proposals across EMEA. So whenever there is an implementation of CG Cloud, I used to jump and I used to be a part of that project. And again, FSL, Field Service Lightning, I always want to explore things that I have never worked. So to get that hands-on experience. So this cross-industry knowledge is also experience, because cross-industry is more about the verticals. I mean, it's working with luxury sector, utility, automobile, and things like that. At the same time, in terms of capabilities also within Salesforce capability, getting to know health cloud, getting to know financial cloud, and why the data model is like that, and trying to justify that that design decisions will help you in order to be a better architect, at least in the Salesforce ecosystem. Last thing is the aligning the data model with the security and license choices. I think in the preparation especially, you have to build your artifacts. Not only that you build the artifacts based on the 10-page scenario that you read, try to kind of map those things. You have a data model, you have security requirements, you have key personas with licenses. Try to always tie these three things together and make sure that your solution works in every facet. That is very important. Don't see things in an individual way, but try to get that consolidated view that comes with practice. And the second part of it is the presentation. This is where you will be presenting, judges will be sitting there, they're not going to talk. So you have full control of it. You only have 45 minutes. These 45 minutes, you have to really present or give the distilled version of your artifacts and your solutions. So this is where you have you have to narrate your artifacts. You have to walk through your solutioning on functional and non-functional requirements. And last thing is explain assumptions and rationale for each and every decision. You might have taken a decision. There is an ESB, let's say there is an ETL. It's not that you put it there because you're an architect, you want to have them there. No, you have to justify each and every decision that you make with a proper rationale. This is what's expected, and I focus mostly on get comfortable with the structure and time, because in terms of your artifacts, let's say you have a sequence, so try to stick to the same sequence always and try to have a dedicated time for each and every slide. Let's say for landscape, you put 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, you have to cover, let's say, 10 important things. Always go through this pattern, and you, especially in the solution, you will have a very specific ad hoc requirement for that scenario. But in terms of the other artifacts, they most of the time they look the same. So try to stick to that. And second thing is, don't change your regular flow during your presentations. Try to stick to one, so that will help you to ease or get used to train your muscle memory to easily get into that rhythm. Keep the pace at check, because let's say that you have 45 minutes and you have 70 solution requirements, functional and non-functional. You can't spend like 30 minutes in your artifacts. So then you have to tune it. You have to play based on the complexity of the solutions also, I mean the requirements also. Last thing is, be clear and cover all the elements in the checklist. So let's say in landscape, if you have to cover your document management strategy, mobile strategy, or so, let's say you have 10 or 15 elements, be clear and precise, be precise on every point. Don't miss anything. So try to cover everything before going to the next artifact. Last thing is the Q&A. I always tell to people that Q&A is the one that either make or break your whole presentation, whole board, CTA board, because this is where you will interact with the judges. This is where you have to justify your choices. Till here, it's one-sided. You read the scenario, you understand one thing, you build your solution, and you narrate it. That's it. No one is challenging till there. The real challenge comes when the judges started giving their own perspective, asking you, hey, why did you do that? Because my understanding was that, not that. My understanding was something else. So this is where the real debate happens. And if you are an architect and if you are in Salesforce ecosystem, working with board or C-suite or really high level management people, this is kind of your regular day-to-day job. But people who are coming from very, very technical roles and responsibilities, this is where they should really practice and shine on. So again, what's expected here is you have to cover any missing details during the presentation, and also you have to justify your choices when they ask the question, not without that. And the third thing is, in case of any change in the solution, make sure you justify it. Let's say they ask you, hey, your license choice was wrong because there is a reporting requirement and you gave customer community, let's say. Then you can change it to CCP, but also you have to take into account the number of volume of these users and all these things. It's not like just they asked you a question, you give an answer. before giving the answer, make sure that you are not breaking anything. And before Jakub was telling that there are different solutions, for me, judges, when they see your solution, they rate either it's a valid solution, we say optimal, or it is suboptimal, or it is invalid. So if you have a optimal solution, good, that you get the right and full marks on that. If it is suboptimal, you're still okay with it, so you'll there'll be a piece of the overall the percentage of marks that you won't get. But if it is invalid, that's kind of a red flag. You can't have many invalid solutions. So if you get an invalid solution, you're going to fail that section. So you have to be very cautious. uh, let's say if your solution, instead of using a standard functionality, if you go with an apex or something, that's still suboptimal. But if you in turn, because when judges ask you a question, you're trying to give them an answer. If that, let's say, you have in terms of org strategy or something, or else in terms of licenses, you should not, for lead and opportunity objects, you gave CCP license. That's an invalid solution. So you have to be very cautious about this overall picture. So again, for that, I have focused on something. You have to be ready to change the solution. Always have this change mindset. Don't be like rigid saying that, no, I'm comfortable with this, I don't want to change. Judges are there to help you. Judges always try to point you to a place where you might have done an uh, error or wrong. So they're giving you an opportunity to correct, or at least they are trying to push you to get a more valid rationale from you. So you just find what they are asking and try to fill that gap. Last thing is, be precise and clear. You only have 40 minutes in your Q&A, and most of the time in 40 minutes they can ask up to 30 questions maximum. So in 30 questions, you have to fill all the gaps that you have during your presentation. So it should be very, very, if your presentation is very, very good that your Q&A will be light. If your presentation is not up to the mark, your Q&A is going to be dense. So prepare for that. Try to give only very, very short answers. I think last time Johan was telling, like, he always want to give 1 or 2 sentences max. That was a really good approach. Try to limit yourself. Being an architect, I think sometimes we like to talk, we discuss, we give very elaborate responses. Try to avoid that part, especially for this exam. And why do I want to be a CTA? So this is a question so everyone should ask. So at least I will give my perspective. Because before a couple of years, when I'm working with a program architect from Salesforce, he used to prepare for the CTA exam, and he used to bounce back his rational or his questions, just to have a debate kind of a thing with me on identity. At that point I used to work a lot on the identity. So then I understood, I saw once he passed the exam, how his role and responsibilities changed, how people see him, how people, the confidence levels. And before, some XYZ guy, now all of a sudden he's having a kind of different, with CTA, people started trusting him. Then I said, okay, maybe I should try this, because at the time I'm only focused on certain aspects of an architect, not the complete full-blown seasoned architect. So I said, okay, now I have to prepare. I have to be an architect. First thing, I'll try to be an architect. I want to get the CTA thing done. But if I fail this exam, it's okay, because at the end of the day, I will be a better architect. So that's my rationale in order to put myself in this journey. Once I understood the nitty gritty details of it, then I understood that, okay, this is something we can pass if we put our consistent effort. That's when I came to the conclusion, or that's how we build this plan, and uh, I passed this exam. Same for you, because you have to find, because at the end of the day, you have to sacrifice a lot of things. Sometimes in the weekend, you have to sit with your study buddies, sit 3 or 4 hours, you have to discuss, or you have to do a lot of mocks. You have to do a lot of sacrifices, especially from your personal place, this personal dedicated time. So this time normally you spend with your family, so that will, you have to put it back into the CTA preparation. So you have to really ask this question, hey, am I doing this because I want to advance in my career, or else is it for a kind of a financial gain, or is it because I want to be a better architect. Just give a rationale. Don't do that just because someone else is doing, because this rationale is very important down the line after 3 or 4 months when you get a feedback. um, get ready for bad feedback. You won't be perfect from day one. When people give you a bad feedback, I know that position a lot of times I get that. It's very depressing, and the next day you have to you have to wake up and do the same thing again. So for that you need a kind of motivation, kind of a driving force. So you should have this reason. First thing to start with is to know why are you going to be a CTA. So this is, I'm again emphasizing on this. Please ask you this question and get really a valid response from yourself. And how do I prepare? This is the interesting part. Okay, so now you're okay, you know what CTA is. You understood, okay, this is CTA is something you're looking for. Now you have to prepare. My preparation took more than a year, almost 15 months. So we used to, I still remember when initial stages, me and a couple of friends, we used to go to, in Paris, we used to have anti-cafes where we sit, and there's a kind of it's kind of a co-working space. You sit there and you can work for any number of hours. So we used to go there and we used to have this elaborate conversation on laptop to schools, how to build a complete and good solution kind of a thing. I still remember. But now down the line, now after 15 months or so, when I see there are a lot of things we changed, maybe we overcomplicated this preparation. So having the right plan is important in order to, because we all of us have very finite amount of time. So that finite amount of time, you want to focus in getting this exam done, you have to really have the plan. So that's why this is very important. So again, this is my plan. So try to adapt it to yourself based on your strengths and weaknesses. So again, I said, it's a 15-month preparation, and I passed this exam on September 22nd this year. Yeah, so for me, step by step, it's the three phases. Initial stage, I think I don't want to put the time, how much I spent on each step, because it varies from everyone. I don't want to really um, hard layer this thing. So step one is know why. So I think we discussed that. And second thing is the list topics for each section. Before uh, Jakub was talking about the 6 sections. So first of all, understand what this section is and what do you know about this section. So if you go to the identity and see what are the individual things in the identity, what should you cover? So same thing for everything, like solution, system architecture, data, everything. So try to write things down. Initial stage, you will only put 10 or 20% of it. Start updating this list. Once you get the complete list of topics, I think for my 6 sections, I have around 360 lines or something, just to give you the amount of depth we can go. So once you get to that point, put it in an Excel and put 2 columns. One is about the priority and other is about the confidence. So do the self-assessment for each and every topic and try to extrapolate that number to get a section level confidence level. So my identity was 4 out of 5, but the data was 2 out of 5. So clearly I know that my data knowledge around data is pretty not up to the mark. So then my focus should be there. So things like that. So you have to have this list and do the self-assessment. And the fourth point is commit the time. Let's say I don't know about OpenID. Now, next step is not to read about OpenID, not to. I should have a plan. How should I explore this topic? Either I should talk with another architect who did this OpenID implementation, or see the Salesforce document. I should have a plan. That plan needs some time. So commit some time and an action plan for each and every week subject that you have. And then plan milestones and potential exam dates. So what I did is, once I'm doing this, I said, okay, my initial plan was after 7 months, I want to write the exam. And I put 2 milestones. Let's say on August 11th, I will be, which is after 3 months, I'll be doing my first mock with 2 CTAs, and I want to get the feedback. And if their feedback is 60 to 80% good, I'm okay, I'm good. So now I can go ahead with my plan. But when I did that, so literally they bombarded me with a lot of Q&A questions, and they said, man, you're not at all ready. So then I have to add 2 more months in order to fill these gaps. So it's not like you have to have an idea of how much time you need. and the milestones. And these milestones are very important because these are the checkpoints on which you make sure your planning is working or not. And last thing is understand the scorecard and study guide. This is very important because for me, my whole is based on the scorecard. In scorecard, I think there are 33 or 36 elements. So each line I said, okay, this is what they expect from this. Okay, they expect you to have the document management strategy. Okay, where is it? It is linked to the system landscape artifact. What is the checklist? For each artifact, I have a checklist. So in landscape, I want to have the document management strategy talked. Okay, so what might they expect? Okay, is it Salesforce files or is it outside? So you have to understand each and every line of your scorecard and see how you're going to answer that, in which artifact it will go and what form it will take. So that is important. Now, once you finish this step one, go to the step two. This is more hands-on. This is more where it's not theory, you're working now. So blah, blah, blah is done. Now you have to work. The step two is where you prepare cheat sheets. Take all the main documents of, the security under the hood documents, take all there are 15 to 16 really important documents. You take the documents, read through them, you like say the LDV strategy and all these documents, and write your own cheat sheets. Why writing your own cheat sheet is always you can't go through a 300-page document or 160-page document, let's say the security guide. You can't always read them. Maximum you can read once. So having a cheat sheet is very important to distill that into your own language, your own understandable way. It should be like, let's say 3 to 4 pages of important content. So that is what you're going to read every now and then. Prepare your flashcards because again, it's spaced repetition. The once you read, you forget. So having a flashcard, let's say what are the limits and what are the key things that I should be focused on, those things I have to write a flashcard and I have to come back and read them regularly. So your muscle memory will increase, and when someone asks you a question, you don't struggle in order to answer. It comes very in a fluid way, so in an easy way. So third point is the build presentation structure with timing. So presentation structure again is okay. During my preparation, I have 11 artifacts. So each artifact I have what amount of time? Let's say introduction, key personas, landscape. So introduction, I spend 2 minutes. Key personas, I spend 3 minutes. Landscape, there are a lot of things to cover, so I spend 4 to 5 minutes, something like that. You have to know what artifact is there, what should be talked, especially in that artifact, what should be covered, and how much time it should take. You should always have this structure. And improve solutioning, because we all know that there are some solutions that keep on coming in your scenario. Let's say that you are in a community, always you have a community, so you have to think of external authentication, maybe social sign-on or something. So there are some things that often come. So all these solutions, read when you do the scenarios, you see that there is a kind of pattern that keep on coming. Like always you have an ESB. Now you have to how your ESB will talk with Salesforce. This is a regular and 100% it comes in every scenario. So things like that, you improve these things. So again, when judges ask you, or in the scenario, you don't put your energy into it. Just with your muscle memory and with the repetition, you just go ahead and write the two-way SSL, how the two-way SSL works, and JWT flow. All these things you should practice more and more. That comes in more solution approach. And your solutioning should also be very quick. You can't you should have a decision tree in your brain. So whenever you have a security requirement, is it internal or external? If it is external, okay, what are we dealing here? So okay, this is the solution. So something like that. You have to be very quick in terms of your solutioning. And improve reading speed and comprehension rate, because you are reading 10-page document. If you're not a native English speaker, so it's very important to really digest the 10-page in your brain, because in the Q&A, when they ask you a question, you should be able to visualize that part. So that part you practice a bit more. Pick study buddies. This is one of the important thing, because your study buddies are the people who push you, or who motivate you, or who will be your accountability partners when you are not in a good shape. So choose them very wisely, because choose them who have the same kind of a eager or hunger to do the CTA. Don't take someone who is not really serious about CTA, because after some time you will become the same. So choose the right buddies and work with them, and build decision charts. As said, for everything have a decision chart. So document management strategy, try to simplify it as a decision flow. Yeah, your security, have a decision flow. So some things you can't simplify it, those things you have to read anyway. Things you can simplify, build the decision tree. What license you have to do, pretty simple decision tree. So always go through that. And last step is more the last 3 months of before your exam. So start doing mocks, because we have very limited mocks in the ecosystem. So of course, if we start writing our own mocks, and after a while I think we will get more and more mocks, but as of now I still think that the number of mocks are pretty limited. So whenever you do a mock, get an external feedback, so from your peers or from real CTAs, just get that feedback. Also get your own feedback, that's more important. You record yourself after, when you have a time, just see yourself talking. So most of the time you will be surprised about the amount of errors that you are doing without you even being aware of them. And hands on the critical pieces. Sometimes there's some requirements like social sign-on or something. It's good to, because me as an architect, I always visualize things. When I talk about something, I visualize, okay, there's a guy, when he click on a button, what's happening, something like that. So doing hands-on will help. So so you have to do that. Again, hands-on will take a lot of time. So but some things you have to do, there's no other way to do it. Weekly session with study buddies. Let these buddies do knowledge session, do mocks, but have this regular discussion going on with this group. Also iterate on the feedback. Let's say you got a feedback this Saturday, you did a mock. Maybe they said that you are doing a lot of word salads, and your narrative is bad, or you're not confident about it. Take those things, write an action plan. Next time when you do that, try to minimize those things. It is more as an iteration on that, and try to improve your key problems, because at last I have 3 problems keep on coming. So I used to paste that on my wall. So I used to say, okay, this is my action plan, so these are the things I have to avoid before even doing another mock. So I used to do a lot of mocks. I used to record myself. I used to practice enough to, because certain habits don't go that easily, because so you have to really build a plan that works for you. Start daily ritual. I'll show what daily ritual is. We'll discuss in a while. Use full scenarios for the time check. You have again very limited full scenarios. So do a full scenario just to see how you are crunching this 3 hours, and how you are building your artifacts, and also in terms of Q&A, everything. So this will help you to understand in terms of time, are you good or not? Because before 2 months or so, I'm good with my solutioning. When I did my full scenario, I felt that I did a lot of things wrong, because I have this, all of a sudden, from 30 requirements to 70 requirements. I don't have enough time to really read, or maybe I'm over relaxed, or I don't know. But doing a full scenario, it will be the real test, because your exam will be 10 page. So working on a 4 page scenario, most of the time you'll do it well, but doing it in a 10 page scenario is a real challenge. That's more your mental capability test. uh, Contact CTAs via social channel to do a mock, because this is where I am afraid initially. But feel free to really ping someone in LinkedIn, and ask them, hey, I'm preparing for my board, and I want to do. Then maybe they will ask you to send one of your mock that you recently did, to see the quality of your presentation. But if they see that you are good and you are up to the mark, people will help. Because I did such a scenarios with almost a dozen CTAs. So believe in yourself, ask them. People, the Ohanas, especially the Salesforce community, people are there to help you. Help everyone. So especially people who want to take CTA board. So please go ahead and ask them. Again, do this often. Do the mocks, get the feedback. It's okay, bad feedback, get used to it, but work on it, and don't do the same mistake. And that's it. This is the step by step. And I said daily ritual, right? So daily I used to do these things. Daily I used to put 30 minutes. I have a lot of flashcard kind of a thing. I have my data models. I have my identity flows, integration patterns, governance, limits, and sequence diagrams. Every day I have, it's like this much time dedicated for each and every topic to do it again and again. At some point I know that I know these things, but I do that again and again. After a while, what happened is, if you ask me to JWT flow or something, or a sales data model or CPQ data model, I don't even think, because it becomes so easy. So I started drawing them very without even using my kind of willpower or energy. So That's very important because we have a very finite willpower. In Q&A, you have to store it because all these things you can't think for every question. So most of the questions try to train your muscle to make it easy. So there'll be some tough questions that will come. So use your energy only on those things. So this ritual will help you to get to that structure. And again, flashcards is very important. So I built my own flashcards because a lot of people want to use others flashcards, but believe me, build your own flashcards because again, like your tailor-made plan, flashcards should talk yourself because you have to, because if it is important, just write it down. Like I have like flashcard 1,000 flashcards, so every day I used to do 40 flashcards. And again, it's spaced repetition. Things that I'm good at, they will come after 10 days. I'm bad, they will come the next day. I use Anki as a tool which do this kind of a spaced repetition algorithm, it is pretty strong. So also cheat sheets. Again, I have around 400 pages of cheat sheet like that. So I have literally a book full of them. So I wrote those things because when I write, again, it's me, because when I write, I remember. And when I read them, because it's my own uh, narrative, so I easily get it back. Again, cheat sheets also write by yourself. Of course, it's going to be time consuming, but believe me, that's going to help you a lot, especially one week before the exam. I'm just using these 400 pages in order to read. That kind of refreshed almost all the subjects I was preparing on. So again, quickly about my artifacts. Yeah, this is my artifact. This is my introduction. So most of the things I use pen and paper. So this is my introduction. Uh, and this is my checklist, which I was talking, because system landscape, I have 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, I should cover why Salesforce, my org strategy, Salesforce modules, my add-ons that are being used, my mobile strategy, my document strategy, my reporting, integration touch points, more detail on why ESB, why ETL, why DMZ, maybe your forward proxy, reverse proxy, your identity layers, what exactly is the federation layer, what are the capabilities it bring onto this thing, and current systems on premise, current systems cloud and third party, at last your multi-language and currency strategy. You have to cover these many things in your landscape. So that is very important. So just get these things in your muscle memory again. So always you follow this sequence. Again, one example of my landscape, try to make it as simple as possible. Don't put a lot of text. Put things that are very important. That's it. So again, the key takeaways in my overall presentation, or whatever we discussed, maybe some of things I repeated because they're very important. Plan ahead, and consistency is the key. Don't Because let's say that you finish your application architect and system architect, don't say that I want to take the exam in next month. No, it doesn't work like that. So CTA is not like any other certification that you do in the Salesforce ecosystem. It is different. The skill or the way that you should prepare is different. So plan ahead, take your time. It's going to be an expensive deal because the exam is expensive. The time that you are spending, you have to put in is going to be a bit more. So plan it, and understand that this exam is a bit different. Take time to assess yourself and find the weak areas. Again, we saw that before. Focus on the weak areas with dedicated time. Daily ritual every day. Daily ritual, so that itself says it's every day. Practice flashcards every day. And again, pick a study group and make sure that your license choice and the limit should be memorized. There's limits I missed before. You should have a kind of limit, Excel or flashcard or whatever it is. Go through these limits. I think there aren't a lot of limits. There will be around 150 limits max. So read those limits every day. You have to know your limits, because they won't be asking you the limits, but during your solutioning, this framework of limits is going to limit your solution. So just memorize that part. And one more, mostly on my experience side, judges are very friendly and we're trying to help you fill the gaps. Q&A, try to be fast. If they don't ask, don't give more information. If they ask, let's say, what is an IWA, just tell that, hey, this is blah blah blah, and that's it. Don't give more information because you are wasting your own time. When your solution looks complicated, recheck the approach, as that might not be the right solution. This happened multiple times during my mocks. When I overcomplicated things, it clearly you're going in the wrong way. Always you have to find most of the time. Okay. So your solution should be simple. Improve muscle memory for Q&A. Be precise in on your answers. Q&A can make or break your entire outcome. So this is the last and very critical element, because Q&A is very, very important, because either you're answering their questions, or literally you're unable to answer, then you will go into a kind of a dominoes flow, dominoes effect. So that can really disturb or your regular flow and your confidence. So that's not good. So practice more and more your Q&A. I think that's it. Yeah, so I'm open to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Praneel. It was a very detailed and inspiring session. I'm sure lots of people are going to get lots of things from this session. There are some questions shared on chat. Probably I will start from the bottom itself.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so there's a question from Atul on how to handle I don't know type situation. Like if you don't know something, how you will present that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think on my side, so you should not have I don't know situations. So if you are really in that, so tell that you will get back to them. So you want to continue the Q&A, because you sitting or focusing on single question, you're wasting your time. So what can go wrong if you have answered your question? Maybe that's tied to a suboptimal question. It's okay. You'll still pass that section. But if it is related to invalid solution that you have given, you're gonna fail that section. Okay, so you have to be cautious about that. If you're wasting a lot of time, at least go ahead so that you can concentrate on the other sections and you can pass. And sometimes you have to make that sacrifice.
Okay, yeah, got it. And there is a question from Joinda on how much time did you take each day? I remember you mentioned you took almost 15 months to finish your preparation, but daily, how much time you spent?
2 hours in a weekday and 10 hours in a weekend. That's especially in the last 6 months, not the 15 months.
Okay, got it. And yeah, can you please share again, how did you went about initial self-assessment exercise? This is from Rupesh.
Yeah. Self-assessment, as said, go in detail about the topics of each and every section. Okay, so let's take identity as an example. What's in the identity? You should know identity connect there. Let's say put everything that you think is related to identity. Okay, what is the federation layer? When to go with identity connect, different flows that you have, everything. If not into the at least a high level detail, then tell that, hey, am I comfortable with JWT flow? Yes. Okay. Have I did hands-on? Do kind of a checklist and see how confident you are. Okay. So sometimes you need to visualize that solution, not the theoretical part, but also the practical implementation, not the technical implementation, but practical knowledge of it. So if you are not comfortable with it, try to put that you're not good at, so you can come back and read about it later, other than telling that you know it, you know about it, and missing the details. So again, it's a bit subjective, it's important thing is to prepare the list. Don't jump into assessment from in the first instance. Prepare the list, or else sit with your buddies and said, hey, let's pull things up on solution architecture or system architecture. Fill that, take 1 week time, so get that Excel right, and then start assessing yourself.
Okay, a related question, Praneel. So you said you were doing campaign study with, you had study buddies, right? And for each person, the level of experience might be different. So when you are doing a campaign study, how you manage that? How you balance the different topics?
Very good question. So I think in terms of knowledge, everyone is unique. Okay, so sometimes I'm good with identity. One of my study buddies, they might not be. So what we used to do is every weekend, especially Saturday is our knowledge session and Sunday is our mock session. Saturday, one used to take lead. Let's say if I claim that I'm good at solution architecture, they used to say, hey, Praneel, you are good at solution architecture because your assessment is telling that. So So why don't you give us, like, take one topic and give us a perspective or kind of a knowledge share. So I used to jump in and I used to explain them that part. Sometimes, strangely, when I'm presenting, I understood that I'm not good at certain things. Okay, so I have to come back and work on that. If I'm good on that, so I am going to share that. And next time, some things that I'm weak, my buddy is good at, so he is going to give that information back to me. So having a big group is good, especially this diverse group with different skill sets, so we can really share our knowledge across.
Okay, got it.
Is it clear, Mira?
Yes, yes, Praneel. Yeah. Okay, there's a question. There are a couple of questions from Sean. Actually, I think this is related to presentation. Basically, how do you manage time for the presentation preparation? Must you always create slides, or can you go with whiteboard presentation? Okay.
It's again, me and Johan, we had a complete different perspective on that. It's up to you, how comfortable you are with the choice you make. Do one thing, take a mock scenario, do PowerPoint, take another mock scenario, do PPT, maybe same scenario, do PPT. See how comfortable you are. Because initial days, I used to do PPT. Slowly I understood that uh, I'm more comfortable with writing things up. So that's my personal choice.
Okay. I
Mine
think
is
there
kind
is
of a
one.
hybrid. Just to give mine is a hybrid.
Okay.
Okay, only artifacts I draw them, especially the data table, integration table, key persona table, or in PPT. So there are certain things in the PPT because as a table, it's much easier there. My artifacts are only the drawings, the landscape, the data model, my governance, identity strategy. Um, I think that's it, and data migration strategy. And especially the solution is directly in the PDF. I used to type my answer. So that it's kind of a hybrid approach.
Okay. Okay, got it. So there's one more question from the same person. He's saying like he is a slow reader and he needs 50% of extended time on exams. So any advice on how to optimize use of preparation time?
Why he need 50% extra time, Mira?
He's a slow reader. That's what he's saying. Slow
So yeah,
reader.
so especially reading, I kind of read kind of books, but reading that I'm pretty fast. But scenario is different, it's not very interesting sometimes. So reading that is hard. So what I did is I used to calculate my word speed. So initial days it used to be around 167 or something, 160, 170. Then I have to increase my read speed. Okay, so I used to read a lot of these non-fictional content in order to improve my read speed. Also my comprehension level. Initially I read the 10 pages only single time. I used to write what I read. So it used to be 10%. It's I'm reading and forgetting very fast. So to do that, again, it's more a mental challenge. I used to do a lot of mindfulness exercises, or kind of a soft focus, not no distraction kind of a thing. These are the more personally, I think, the bad habits I have because of the short focus I have. So I have to work on this in order to improve my reading speed and a comprehension level. I think for that you have to do such an exercise too.
Okay, okay, got it. And there is another question related to how many mock exams you have taken before appearing for the actual.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I took 42 mock exams, 42 mocks. Okay, so sometimes it's the same mock presenting to different people, but because I used to record every mock, what was the feedback from whom. So technically I get 42 feedbacks from different people. So 42.
Okay. So there is a question, I think it was for Jakub, related to like how much in-depth knowledge we need to get for new clouds like financial cloud, marketing cloud, all those things.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and unfortunately, there is no easy answer. If you go to the exam guide, generally there is not mentioning Sales Cloud nor Service Cloud, and definitely you have to be expert of both of them when you are preparing. I had assumption that generally these new clouds like Health Cloud and Financial Cloud are not part of the exam, and I was not studying them, which was good decision because I had no question about them. But let's say CPQ or field service or Salesforce maps, I have a feeling that it's good to be familiar with them, because let's say CPQ topic, generally, if you are not an expert, I would be very skeptical. Is it good to just put CPQ if you're in your solution if you don't know it? Because then they can ask you about many details. But if you can, let's say, learn CPQ data model and you have some requirements related to the custom pricing model, then you don't have to think how to build your custom objects. You can just use something what you already studied about. And with field service, again, it's super powerful set of features. And it may happen that in the scenario you will have only, like, say something about maintenance plan. So then you are not going to probably recommend to use field service. But fact that you are familiar with it is helpful, because you can just put a good data model immediately and describe how it should be solved in your custom solution.
Okay, got it. There is another question related to appearing for the review board. So if you have multiple solution approaches, and so how to handle that situation when judges have a different perspective of optimal solution which doesn't match with your perspective? So how do you handle that situation?
Okay, so I have a feeling that it's hard to say that it's only one fully optimal solution. I heard that on the real exam, they don't have a single solution key, but they have like some kind of the conversation trees. And if you say option A, they are ready to change why you are not selecting option B. If you say B, they ask you why you are not selecting A. So they're always ready to challenge your solution, because usually, exactly as we spoken about it during the second presentation, if you made a mistake and your solution is not working, it's kind of obvious for judges. But differences between optimal and suboptimal solution usually are strongly related to your assumptions, your justifications, and your explanations. So I would say that if you know that you have a good solution and it's a working solution, you should try to just explain and convince them that you know what they are talking about. If you have a situation when they really don't like your solution and they are asking you again and again about the same topic, then maybe it's even some kind of the hint and suggestion that just it's not a good solution and something is not working. And in this case, it's more about having this soft skills and being able to get feedback on the fly.
Okay.
Just to add on that, so Jakub, I completely agree with you. I think it's your assumption sometimes will point you to might be a different solution. So what at that time judges will ask you is to kind of change your assumption to see how your thought process is working, to see if you're going in the right way or not. But most of the time, I agree, it will be a single solution.
Okay, yeah, got it. I'm checking if we have got more questions. Okay, so what was your strategy while you were going through the requirements document during the exam? Read once or twice or started solutioning in parallel?
Yeah. Jakub, you want to take it? I'll continue.
Sure. So I was trying always to read it 3 times. The first time is to have an understanding what is the scenario about, and generally self-note like what are the main actors, the main systems, and so on. The second attempt, it was like, I would say more than 50% of the time when I was trying to solve all bullets and prepare the final solution. And in the perfect world, the third attempt to read the scenario is a moment when you can validate your solution. So I would try to do not modify anything, only catch heavy errors if I find something. And this third time, for me, it was a buffer, because on the real review board, I had a virtual machine, I had some technical problems, and my performance was not as good as it was during my preparation when I was doing it on my own computer. So during the final review board, I read the exam only twice, and it was good because practicing for having this third round of reading give you some kind of the time buffer in case of anything on the real day.
Yeah.
What do
Okay.
you think?
Yes, I agree with you. So I think on my side, I did kind of a same thing. So I read 3 times. First time is I call it priming. I don't touch my pen or I don't touch any of the PowerPoint. First, initially before reading, I make my PowerPoint structure. So I make my artifact thing, which normally takes 11 minutes. So once I did that, I don't touch them. I read my first time just to get that frame. Normally it takes 18 minutes max for me to read end to end. So I'm not like reading in detail. I'm getting the real gist out of what industry it is, what are the key personas, what are I call the fragile points. Fragile points are the places where I'm not sure about the solution kind of thing. I get that scan once and then I read the second time in a more detailed way where I put my artifacts right next to you, where I started building my iterating my data model. So my initially what I used to do is I used to go and I used to mark what I don't know. But last I changed my strategy. Like I always go every requirement. I have to find a solution before going to the next one, except if I waste more than 3 minutes on that. So I second time kind of I finish my overall picture. Third time it's more like security check, only data related, landscape related, not landscape, sorry, persona related and security related. Trying to check these 3 things and see that if I don't do any big error, which is like kind of breaking this model. So kind of 3 times.
Okay. Yeah. There is another question to Jakub from Lilith actually. Basically, she would like to understand how you analyze your gaps, because you said you started by analyzing your gaps first. So she's asking, like, it's always difficult to know what you don't know. How did you go about filling your gap enough to write the scenario?
Okay, so as you know, I was doing my preparations together with Flow Republic. So Sebastian has some kind of the template for knowledge test at the beginning when you can just make assessment of different aspects of Salesforce. But I would say that it's not super challenging when you think about your whole career. And for example, if you never worked with Marketing Cloud, definitely you can have some understanding how it works, but you don't know lots of details, so you can consider it as a gap. If you are like heavy developer, probably your gap is going to be related to declarative skills. From the other hand, if you are just consultant who evolved into being architect, but you never wrote production-ready Apex code, the Apex development can be your gap. So I would suggest to literally go back to your LinkedIn profile and go through all your history of your Salesforce projects, and based on this, compare it with what you expect that is part of the exam, and literally focus only on heavy topics like what kind of the clouds you never use, what kind of the features, and what was your exposition on governance in terms of like center of excellence, of multi-org strategies, and just these big topics. Because when you just pick the topics which you want to cover during your studying, then going into details will be just natural next step for you.
Okay.
I have a question here, if I can ask you.
Yeah,
Maybe
sure.
both of you, Praneel and Jakub. I understand you were part of Flow Republic, right? But there might be some people who are not a part of Flow Republic, or in that case, how do we find the mock exams? Because there are no online material, or there are no many communities where you can do mock exams, right? But because Praneel mentioned that he did 43 mock exams before going to the exam, but if you're not part of this Flow Republic, or you're not part of that community, how can we prepare for the mock?
Yeah, I think the 43 first thing. So in terms of mocks, especially whatever the Flow Republic or community written scenarios,
Mhm.
uh, I tried couple of things. I felt in terms of complexity, they are kind of blown out of proportion. So I never did any mock that's from Flow Republic. Whatever the 43 mocks I said are either community, like in the sense Salesforce written scenarios. So one or two, they are based on our couple of RFPs in PwC. We converted them kind of in a kind of a scenario to really check a couple of things we want to explore FSL. So we built our own scenario to get to that. So first thing, we haven't used, at least I haven't used it. Second thing, Flow Republic, again, forgot to mention, because I took my CTA twice. First time I took in last September, I failed. At that time, I was with Flow Republic. From September till this November, I took the board second time. I was not a part of Flow Republic. So I did my preparation by myself with a bunch of study buddies and a kind of couple of CTAs who I know personally. So again, to tell, in the community, you don't need to be a part of any program to pass CTA. Believe me, these programs are not for everyone. If my problems are different, because maybe some people who are really, they're not tailor made for everyone. So they kind of give you a feedback. That's it. But my situation was different, because I'm lacking a lot of knowledge areas, and I understood that these things doesn't work for me. So I have to have a own tailor made plan, and no one is going to give that. There's no offering like that as of now. So I have to build my own plan with a couple of friends, CTAs. That's the reason why my thing took quite long. Again, to answer your question, Shruti, so it's about your plan. So your weak, if you know clearly what Flow Republic or any other thing can help you is to find the weak areas. But if you can access yourself, you can plan easily. And scenarios, the same, you have 11 or 12 scenarios in the community. Those things are enough in order to really get to that solutioning approach.
Okay.
Jakub,
So the mock exams which you did were with your study buddies as well.
yes, I think those are exactly in the Trailblazer community. So those are the things I did, but I did multiple times the same thing.
And how did you find your study buddies? Was it like
Study buddies multiple ways, because last time I went when I was in Dreamforce, I saw there was a CTA presentation happening, and there are a couple of people sitting there. Then we started a conversation. That's one way I get a couple of buddies. And internally in PwC, we have a kind of uh, team who are preparing for the board. And other thing is, when you know someone who is taking CTA, automatically you know other people, because this group is very limited in size. So you can easily get to know people if you are in the community. Let's say SAIMA as an example. If you ask Johan or someone, hey, I'm preparing to take a board in 6 months, can you tell me anyone who take? He's going to help you with it. So it's an example, huh? So don't ask Johan. So
I want to say that.
I
No.
have one
Uh,
last question.
may- Maybe I follow up here. How did Jakub and I find each other? I just posted on the Salesforce Architect Success community. I look for study buddies, and then Jakub commented it, and this is how we got started. Or I did the same. I made the same post on LinkedIn, and this is actually how the SAIMA group got started.
It's nice. Yeah.
So just reach out. You have to be a little bit outgoing, I think, Praneel, is when I can add there. Passing the CTA is, you have to network, I would say,
Exactly.
maybe.
Exactly.
I have one last question. Sorry, guys, but I have one last question. So there were multiple blogs about a few CTAs which I read, and there are tips and tricks and everything. And people say that at least have two coaches. But then, how do you find a coach? Is that something because most of the people said that, yeah, at least have two coaches who could guide you. But are there really any coach who can who are there any people who can actually spare some time and coach you in a way or give you some time?
I don't know the definition of coaching here. I don't even completely agree with this two coach approach. It's all about filling the gaps, Shruti. So if again, taking my example, when I do the assessment, I understood clearly I have one big problem of knowledge. Second problem is my Q&A. I think Q&A is kind of related to my knowledge gaps. Second thing is, sometimes when there's a question, I do kind of a word salad, like I'm kind of give more information than required. So these two things doesn't need really coach. Knowledge is something I bridge based on the cheat sheets I wrote. It's about the time. Sometimes some people know everything because they're an ecosystem from very long time, but I have to really struggle a lot in order to build my knowledge. Second thing is, coach will help you, especially in the feedback. So maybe having two coaches will help you get two feedbacks, but I will not call them coaches. You can even ping someone. I said right before, if you really want to get feedback from CTAs, find CTAs in LinkedIn or from groups like SAIMA or Ladies Be Architects. Ask them, hey, do you want to judge me? Maybe they will not trust everyone because we receive quite a lot of messages like that. What I normally what I do is I'll ask them to send, hey, can you send me one recent presentation artifacts that you did recently. Based on that, I kind of easily assess what quality they are in. Are they ready to really do a mock, or they really have to work on the knowledge? If it is knowledge, I clearly tell them, hey, work on your knowledge. If you want any help, I can do that. But if they are ready, I said, okay, let's do a mock. I do almost every week, I do a couple of mocks. So
Oh, that's nice.
I would like to add that generally this idea is how Flow Republic can help you, because like for me, when I was starting my preparation, I didn't know literally no CTAs. I never worked with any CTA, and I'm not working in a big company. So from my perspective, like going to Flow Republic and taking advantage of having 6 months with Sebastian was just the easiest things which I can do. And you can get as good feedback as good you are at the moment when you are solving the mock. So if, for example, you never make any mock in your life, probably it's not a good moment to start asking CTAs on LinkedIn to spend time with you, because you are not ready yet to take all of benefits which they can give you with their feedback. The first thing is to just try solve some mocks on your own and compare it, for example, with recordings from SAIMA or from Ladies Be Architect. Then you can start training with people who are already in the middle of their preparations, or they are closer to their real review board. They have some data because they can give you a lot of knowledge. And then like going to people who already passed this exam can be even the final step, because their time probably is going to be limited. And Flow Republic works pretty nice because Sebastian or another coach is going to spend with you 6 times at least doing one-on-one mocks, but it's your benefit that you're paying for it, and you can ask them for this time without any problems.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. I have one small question. I asked already in the chat, maybe it got missed out. Hey, Praneel, do you have a list of topics? You said you made a list, right?
yeah.
Can you share that?
Yeah, so I can send it. I'll add the Excel to this presentation link.
Yeah, thank
you. Please feel free to unmute yourself if I have missed some question. I can see one more question here from Jonida on like how long before did you write a case with Salesforce, and how long does it take to receive a free slot?
Are there any free slots? I mean the free slot. Okay, so free slot is the getting a slot. Okay.
Correct.
I thought the CTA exam became free now. So okay. I have no idea. So Johan or Jakub. So.
There are no easy answer, especially in post-COVID time. And the biggest change now that I have like a friend who was studying with me in Flow Republic, and he's expecting to have a board slot in April. So like, everything is super booked because Salesforce had this, I think 5 or 6 months without any review boards, because they just starting offering these virtual ones, I think in July. So, it's from the organization point of view, it was really a big thing. I would recommend to open case as soon as you can, because if you open case now and say that you want to go for the exam in June or July, if you won't be ready to go for June, in April you can always ask to postpone. But if you will wait a few more months and then you will say, hey, I'm ready, could you give me the slot in the next month or in the next 2 months? For sure, they are not going to magically find it for you. So if you have this system and application architect cert and you are thinking to start preparation, it's a good moment definitely to open the case. And I would say that in normal conditions, 6 or 8 months in advance probably it's the minimum which you have to do it. And as far as I know, additionally, if you go for Salesforce trainings like CTA 601 and especially 602, it can help you a little bit, because then, nothing is written in stone. And if Salesforce have information that you already passed the CTA 602, maybe they can somehow prioritize it to you. But probably the best option is to just go and check it during CTA office hours. As far as I know, there are weekly meetings, so you can then just ask what is the current situation, because of course I'm not following up all this information on daily basis.
So how long did it take for you to get a free slot there?
I think I opened my case in end of the November, just after last Dreamforce, and I had my slot in June. So for me, it was like 8 months.
Yeah, for me it's 3 months. My initial date was in April, but it got postponed because of COVID, so it came to September.
And mine was about 10 or 11 months, and for the friend we have, it's like 14 months. But all these numbers are really just random samples. But it doesn't hurt to open a case. You lose nothing.
Okay, Johan. Yeah. Okay, there is one question from Dipojal on this is related to financials. Like, I know it might be different based on the company and individual situation. How did you convince your company to support for the CTA coaching or the review board in terms of financials, if applicable?
Maybe I pitch in there because this is a topic which is very close to my heart.
Okay.
Because my company, I didn't even ask my company. At least for me, I cannot talk for Jakub or for Praneel, but getting a CTA increased my daily rate by about 25 to 75%. So I studied business because this is how I usually work. I did the calculation on it. So I paid everything myself. I spent about 70,000 euro altogether because it didn't work and all this stuff. I have a return of investment of more than 30%. So within 3 years, I have all the money back. When you get the CTA, your pay increases by so much that whatever you have to pay, don't wait for your boss. Don't wait for your company. Just go for it. And if you have to take out a loan of 50% interest, fuck it, go for it. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah, so Dipojal, just to add on that, so I think it depends on your position and your relation with the Salesforce. Are you a partner or are you a customer? If you're a partner, I think this whole partner ecosystem know how valuable the CTA is. It's going to be pretty easy for you to negotiate with your boss or your partner. But if you're a customer, it's pretty difficult to show how it can bring value as a customer. But if you have a program architects or technical architects from Salesforce that are working on the project, you can easily tell, hey, me getting a CTA, most of the internal Salesforce guys are also not CTAs, So if I get a CTA, I can be in their position, and in that way, you can reduce one guy who costs like $200,000 or something. So that's how you should do the build your pitch.
Yeah, and I would like to add that, convincing a boss, if you are like in the same company for 5 years and you are end customer, probably can be challenging. But on my history, when I was like looking for a new job, support for the CTA and generally confirmation that I will be able to go for Dreamforce with my company was one of my prerequisites. And when you are going to negotiate your salary, usually when you are asking for $10, they will give you maybe 8. So we are saying, okay, 8 is not bad, but in this case, maybe would you like to pay for the CTA or for the Dreamforce? And always like at the beginning of cooperation is pretty nice. And of course, then you can speak about details, like how long, for example, like in my case, I have agreement with my company that if I will decided to leave them immediately after the CTA, I have to give them money back. So there is like some kind of the conditions that like loyalty clause, we call it in Poland, in something like that. So you can always find a way. The most important part that if you want to take support from your company, you have to go to your supervisor and start speaking about it and looking what are the opportunities. Because at the end, if you are going to work on the full time and studying for the CTA exam, is going to be a very big effort, and you need to have some kind of the support from your supervisor.
Okay, yeah, good to hear. And there is another question related to your learning plan after becoming CTA. So how is your learning going on after that? Praneel, would you
I
like
think
to take that?
my thing I think Sergey asked, right? Yeah. Hey Sergey, I think learning plan, it kind of changed, all of a sudden from a guy who is presenting to always every weekend. Now I'm kind of judging every weekend. So the perspective changed, but still doing the same job of getting to know things every now and then.
So I think we asked this question to Jakub and Johan last time. So how is your life after CTA?
Yeah, like the best thing after CTA is that you can go back to the topics which you really want to study. And like I was very focused only on the content of the mock exam for 6 months. So I had a really long backlog of topics like, I don't know, Salesforce DX and command line and the new JavaScript tools and so on, which I wanted to put more attention, but it was out of the scope of the exam. So I was just adding it to some Trello list. And now finally I can go back through all of them. Some are Salesforce related, some are not. So like I feel that I have again a lot of motivation for learning new stuff, but much more flexibility with picking these topics, which is really nice.
For me, I was skipping the last 2 release notes. I usually have the habit of reading release notes end to end, and I was skipping last ones, so I have quite some time to catch up. And as Praneel said, I still do the same amount of mock exams. Didn't change much. It's kind of once you get used to it, it's a kind of a fun hobby.
Okay, Johan. Yeah. And yeah, one more question I can see here, like how long did you take off before doing your CTA, like off from your work?
I took 2 weeks off just before the exam.
Oh, okay. And Jakub, what about you?
I don't need 2 days off, but like I am not sure. Like I was studying so long time and so much that I was not so much stressed about the exam. I was just tired of this whole studying, and the idea that I will take like say 2 weeks just for studying before the exam. When I felt that I memorized lots of this thing, I think it would be just putting on me bigger pressure. So I think I had my exam on Wednesday, so I decided to take Monday, Tuesday, and literally these last days I was going to the forest and walking with my dog and not focusing so much on sales. So it was more about my mental health and reducing the stress level.
Okay, I think it's also important to have a good support from your team also, right? If you want to prepare for CTA.
Yes, definitely. Like, you cannot, let's say, be in the middle of high priority project working on customer base when somebody is calling you in the middle of the night because some problems with deployments. Like, literally, you have to have some kind of the support and some kind of the environment when you can, at least in this last month, put the CTA preparation at top of your priority list.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and also these priorities, of course, you have to get complete help from your company, but always in company, their priorities change quite frequently. Okay, so the reason why I have to take 2 weeks off at the end is just to disconnect from the work, because or else you always have to put your CTA in parallel with your work. So you have to take your client call, you have to think that part. So there are a lot of things going in your brain. So as we're talking, as Jakub was telling, it's about your mental balance, just to disconnect from everything for a while and give that space to your brain so that it can really perform well during the exam is one key thing that's important for this board.
Okay, Praneel. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Any last words from you, Johan or Gaurav, that you would like to share?
I want to say thank you to Praneel and Jakub for taking the time. This was really amazing. Praneel, where have you been 1.5 years ago when I started my journey? Where have you been? Where was this presentation back then?